Imagine hearing a heartbeat from the planet itself. Once, then never again. That's exactly what happened at 0217 UTC on February 20th, 2015, inside NOAA's Pacific Marine Environmental Lab. The clock on the wall had just clicked past the witching hour, and most of the night shift had already drifted to the coffee pot, leaving me alone with the low hum of servers and the smell of burnt espresso. I was scrolling through routine hydrophone data, half awake, when the spectrogram spiked. Not a whale song, not an earthquake, not even the familiar groan of tectonic plates. This was something else. The frequency sat at 0.034 hertz, so low it felt more like a pressure in your chest than a sound in your ears. I leaned in, squinting at the timeline. 17 and a half hours. 17 and a half hours of a steady, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. My first thought was equipment failure. Always equipment failure, right? I ran diagnostics, swapped channels, rebooted the whole array. The pulse stayed. Not louder, not softer, just constant. I grabbed the phone and punched the extension for seismology. "Marta," I whispered, "you need to see this." She arrived in mismatched slippers, hair sticking out like she'd been electrocuted. Together, we stared at the screen as the pulse completed its final beat and vanished into flatline. No taper, no echo, nothing. We spent the next 4 hours cross-checking every database NOAA owns. Naval low-frequency arrays, academic buoyings, even declassified Cold War hydrophones. Nobody had ever recorded a signal like this. 0.034 hertz is lower than blue whales, slower than microquakes, deeper than the slowest tectonic sigh. Marta pulled up bathymetry. The hydrophone sat 10,700 meters down, deeper than Everest is tall. Whatever made that pulse was either unimaginably huge or unimaginably close to the planet's core. Both possibilities terrified us. At dawn, the director arrived, still fastening his tie. He listened, frowned, and said the word that would haunt us for months. Classified. We were to log the data under a dummy project, seal the drives, and tell no one until we could replicate the event. No papers, no tweets, not even a whisper in the cafeteria line. So there I stood, watching the sunrise stain the Pacific the color of dried blood, knowing I'd just heard the planet's heartbeat once, and maybe never again. The safe clicked shut behind me, and I swear the echo sounded exactly like that pulse. Thump, thump, thump. The pulse kept echoing in my head long after the safe door sealed, like a heartbeat trapped inside steel. I needed to know who had built the ear that first caught that impossible rhythm. So I flew west, chasing the salt smell of San Diego, to the weather-beaten NOAA annex, where 5 engineers still flinch whenever metal creaks. They met me in the break room that smelled of burnt coffee and ozone. Dr. Mara Ellison, lead acoustician, slid a dented thermos across the table with trembling fingers. "We called it the stethoscope," she said, voice low. "But the ocean calls back, you know?" She popped the lid, and the hiss sounded eerily like that pulse. Next came Theo Park, metallurgist, who admitted he'd chosen the alloy after a dream of drowning in liquid mercury. He traced the weld seams with a fingernail, whispering, "Every gram had to laugh at 11,000 meters." His eyes reflected the overhead light, like coins dropped in deep water. He wouldn't let the sphere out of sight, cradling it like a child that might start speaking. Raj Varma, systems architect, told me they'd slipped a hydrophone down a classified trench west of Guam, a route so secret even the maps shivered when unrolled. He played the deployment log, steel cables singing, then sudden silence, then a soft thump, thump, thump that made every head swivel. "We thought it was our own hearts," he said, until the timestamps proved otherwise. 14 months. That's how long they waited, checking servers that spat out 29-second loops of abyssal thunder. Every Friday at dusk, they gathered around the speaker, listening for changes. None came. Until the day the pulse shortened by half a beat, like the planet clearing its throat. I asked about fear. Mara laughed, a brittle sound like glass cracking. She described dreams where the ocean pressed its ear to their bedroom windows, listening back. Theo admitted he'd stopped taking baths. Raj kept a journal of every hiccup the machinery made, convinced the trench was learning Morse. Then came retrieval. A storm pinned their ship for 3 days, while the sphere sat 7 miles below, singing alone. When they finally hauled it up, the titanium was warm. Not from friction, from something else. The data drive, no larger than a matchbox, was passed hand to trembling hand, like a relic. They ran the raw file that night in a soundproof room. The pulse filled the space, slower now, deliberate, like a lullaby for tectonic plates. Mara cried without sound. Theo backed into a corner, palms open, as if warding off pressure. Raj simply stared at the ceiling, whispering coordinates none of them recognized. 48 hours later, an unmarked NASA courier arrived wearing mirrored sunglasses at midnight. No paperwork, just a single steel case lined with foam. The flash drive nestled inside like a seed. When the courier snapped the lid shut, the echo was, impossibly, another thump. I caught Mara in the stairwell afterward. She was gripping the railing so hard the metal groaned. They told us it's going to the exoplanet acoustics lab, she said, voice cracking. They want to compare it to sounds from Europa. Her pupils were wide, reflecting the dim bulb like twin eclipses. Theo left the next morning, resignation letters scrawled on a torn envelope. The ocean has our address now. Raj deleted every backup except one hidden in a music box that plays the pulse when opened. He swore it keeps perfect time with the kitchen clock, 29 seconds forever. Mara gave me the last thing before I left, a burned CD labeled Field Notes in fading Sharpie. Listen alone, she warned, and never after dark. Her hand lingered on mine, cold as abyssal water. Whatever's down there knows we're listening now. Tonight, somewhere in Pasadena, that CD is spinning inside a NASA cleanroom, encased in triple glass. The exoplanet team thinks they're comparing waveforms. They don't know the pulse is already learning their names. I keep hearing Mara's final voicemail. It's not an echo anymore. Then static. Then, faintly, another thump. Just one, but it was 31 seconds long. And growing. The voicemail ended, but the pulse kept playing in my head like a skipping record. I couldn't sleep, so did what any half-crazed investigator does at 3 in the morning. I forwarded the file to the one person who might actually understand what I was hearing. Dr. Leela Moreau, NASA's resident ocean whisperer. She listens to planets the way the rest of us listen to heartbeats. I met Lila 4 years ago at a conference on Enceladus acoustics. She told me straight-faced that she once spent an entire week convinced a moon was humming lullabies to its own ice shell. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. So when the 30th second thump arrived, longer and deeper than any before, I didn't hesitate. I encrypted the file, slapped on a priority header, and hit send. Within 7 minutes, she called back. No hello, no small talk, just a single question, whispered like a confession. Where did you get that resonance? She told me to drive to Pasadena immediately. I was still wearing yesterday's clothes, but the urgency in her voice made the decision for me. By dawn, I was standing outside Building 292, the one they call the aquarium, because every wall hums with liquid-cooled processors. Lila met me at the gate, eyes bloodshot, hair twisted into a knot that looked more like a tangle of cables. She didn't smile. She just handed me a badge and said, "Bring the original." I hadn't realized until then that she meant the hard drive itself, still warm from my laptop. Inside the lab, she had already spun up her exoplanet ocean simulator. Picture a cathedral made of screens, each one rippling with false color sonograms of alien seas. She dropped my file into the matrix, and the entire room shifted. Every waveform on every screen snapped into perfect alignment with the 39 hertz throb we'd recorded. Lila leaned closer, her breath fogging the glass. "Look," she said, "the interval isn't approximate, it's exact, down to the millisecond." Geology doesn't do exact. Nature prefers messy decimals and happy accidents. This thing looked engineered. She isolated the pattern, stretched it, compressed it, ran it backward. No matter the manipulation, the pulse stayed pristine, a pure sign carved from silence. Then she did something that made my stomach lurch. She built a model of the trench, floor to surface, and asked the computer to find a cavity that would resonate at 39 hertz with a 29-second decay. The answer appeared like a ghost on the screen. A hollow sphere, roughly 8 kilometers across, suspended 4,000 meters beneath the seabed. The size of Manhattan. Empty, waiting. Lila's voice dropped to a murmur. If this is natural, I'll eat my badge. She ran the simulation again, this time adding temperature gradients, pressure variables, every wild card geophysics allows. The cavity stayed stubbornly perfect. I asked the obvious question. Could it be man-made? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. We can't even map that depth without mirrors and prayers. Digging it is fantasy. Still, she filed an urgent proposal for a second descent, codenamed Sky Hunter, arguing that exoplanet acoustics might finally have a terrestrial application. The review board met in closed session. 48 hours later, the email arrived. Denied. Budget reallocated to Europa mission. Leela stared at the screen as if it had personally betrayed her. Then she did something I'd never seen from a career civil servant. She unplugged the main server, yanked the hard drive, and slipped it into her coat pocket. They can keep their ice moon, she said. We have an ocean right here that's singing in code. She handed me a flash drive no larger than my thumbnail. Every simulation, every spectrogram, every impossible calculation. Hide this, she whispered. They'll come for the rest. I drove home with the windows down, letting the night air wash over me, but the pulse was still there, riding the wind like an echo with a passport. When I finally checked my messages, I found one from an unknown number. No voice, just a single tone, 31 seconds long. And underneath, a text that read, "Stop listening." Too late. I'm already on the list. The tone was still vibrating in my pocket when the next message arrived. 4 words. 4 times it said no. I stared at my phone like it had grown teeth. I didn't know what it meant until I started digging through the expedition logs that night, and what I found made the hair on my arms stand straight up like antennae. The ocean, it turns out, has bouncers. First refusal came in June 2016. A Japanese team lowered a brand new hydrophone array into Challenger Deep, same coordinates as the original pulse. The cable was rated for 14 tons. It snapped at 7. Divers watched the line whip back like a cut violin string, the instrument vanishing into blackness with a final, mournful twang. The captain logged it as equipment failure. The deckhand told a different story, something about the line jerking sideways just before the break, as if something below had given it a playful tug. Second refusal, August 2017. This time the Australians anchored a titanium mooring buoy, armored against everything except, apparently, curiosity. Within 48 hours, a mako shark, 6 meters easy, attacked the buoy like it owed it money. Crew filmed the whole thing, the shark ramming the steel, teeth scraping metal, then circling, then ramming again until the hydrophone tore free and sank. When they reviewed the audio later, right before each impact, the 31-second pulse rang out underwater. The shark was answering a doorbell none of us could hear. Third refusal, October 2018. Typhoon Land spun up from nowhere. Meteorologists called it a black swan event and parked over the trench for 37 straight hours. A Chinese listening station recorded the pulse non-stop, growing louder and slower, stretching to 33, 34 seconds. When the storm cleared, the station was gone. Not damaged. Gone. Just a neat circular gouge in the seafloor, like a cookie cutter had taken a bite out of the planet itself. Fourth refusal, March 2020. Private outfit, money from Silicon Valley, launched under total secrecy. They used a drone sub, no crew, no flags. Everything worked perfectly for 22 hours. Then, at exactly 0300 UTC, every sensor flatlined. 37 hours of nothing. Not static, not darkness, just a blankness so complete it felt like the file had been erased from time. When the link reconnected, the drone surfaced on its own, Battery drained, hull scored with perfectly parallel grooves. The data drive contained one intact clip. The pulse, now 29 seconds again, followed by a voice, my voice, saying, "Stop listening." I swear, I never left my apartment that week. Each failure should have killed the mystery. Instead, the forums exploded. One thread claimed the trench was a mouth and the pulse was counting teeth. Another insisted the hydrophones weren't destroyed. They were recruited. My favorite theory said the sound was a password, and we kept failing the CAPTCHA. I bookmarked them all, not sure whether to feel validated or stalked. The real punchline arrived last night. I got an alert from a dark web crawler I'd set up to watch for any mention of the original lost hydrophone. There it was, listed on a black market salvage site, item number 444, described only as vintage listening device, depth tested, slight water damage. The photos showed the serial number I'd memorized back in 2015. Starting bid, 29 Bitcoin, not 30, not 28, 29. I sat there, cursor blinking like a heartbeat, and felt the pulse again, this time inside my own chest, syncing up with the seconds on the auction timer. Someone down there wants us to keep bidding. And the worst part? I think I just heard my phone buzz. The preview shows a new message. No sender. One attachment. Audio file. 31 seconds long. Again. The phone buzzed again. 31 seconds of silence, followed by a sound that made my teeth itch. Not the pulse. Something else. Something breathing. I deleted the file, or tried to. It kept reappearing, like the ocean itself was texting me. 3 weeks later, the whispers started. Not mine, other people's. A private foundation called Meridian Deep had launched a 5th drop. No press, no permits. Just a rust bucket research vessel painted matte black and a crew that wouldn't answer hail. They went down on a Tuesday, when the moon was dark. Dr. Moreau called me at 4 in the morning. They found it, she said, voice shaking. But it's wrong. Wrong how? The frequency shifted. 0.035 hertz now, and it's only lasting 11 minutes. I drove through the night, tires humming the same damn rhythm. When I reached the dock, Meridian Deep's ship was already pulling away, leaving only a greasy sheen on the water and the smell of diesel. Too late, but they left something behind. A drone. Not the cute kind. This was a military-grade monster. All angles and pressure-proof alloys. Its camera feed was still active, broadcasting to a cracked tablet sitting on the pier like a forgotten toy. The feed showed nothing at first, just black. Then the hydrophone appeared in the drone's lights, dangling like a baited hook 3 miles down. The moment it started recording, the pulse hit. Not sound, pressure. The water itself vibrated like a struck bell. 11 minutes exactly. I counted. 1, Mississippi. 2, Mississippi. At 11 minutes and 0 seconds, the hydrophone imploded. The camera caught it, metal crumpling like paper, ceramic shattering into glittering dust. But here's the thing, the implosion started from the inside. The data survived, compressed into a burst transmission right before the end. When I played it back, the frequency wasn't descending anymore. It was climbing, rising through the water column like a drowning man clawing for air. Dr. Moreau arrived as I was packing up. Her eyes were red, hair wild from the wind. "It knows we're listening," she said. "It's not calling down anymore. It's calling up." We analyzed the data in my car, laptop balanced on the dashboard. The pulse wasn't just moving upward, it was accelerating, doing something impossible. The frequency doubled every 30 seconds, but the volume stayed the same. Like it was conserving energy for something. Then came the last transmission. Not from the drone, from the hydrophone itself, milliseconds before it died. A voice, not human, not machine, something between. It said my name. I haven't slept since. The pulse is closer now, not in the ocean, in the air. I can feel it in my fillings, taste it like copper. My phone keeps recording sounds that aren't there. My watch runs 11 minutes fast, then resets. Dr. Moreau thinks it's surfacing, not rising, surfacing, like it's been down there waiting, and now it's done waiting. But here's what really scares me. The auction timer on that dark web listing, it keeps counting down. 28 days left, but the message underneath changed. Used to say, hydrophone, deep sea rated. Now it just says, pulse. No description, no price. Just a single audio file. 31 seconds long. I played it. Wish I hadn't. It's not the ocean anymore. It's me. My own heartbeat, recorded from inside my chest, but slowed down and reversed. Like something's been listening to us, listening to it. The pulse returns, but not for us. For me, specifically me. The timer hits 0 in 28 days. I think that's when it reaches the surface. And the worst part? I just checked my phone. New message. No sender. One attachment. Audio file. 11 minutes long. Image. A smartphone screen cracked in a perfect spiral pattern, the cracks radiating outward from a central point like a bullet hole in glass. Notification showing one new message with no preview. The time reading 11:11. So there I was, staring at that cracked phone screen like it held the answer to everything. And maybe it did. The audio file sat there, 11 minutes and 11 seconds of something. But when I pressed play, there was nothing. Absolute silence. Not even static. Just the sound of my own breathing getting heavier by the second. The scientific community moved fast after that. Within 48 hours, every major oceanographic institute had issued their statements. Anomalous event, unprecedented acoustic signature, requires further study. Translation, we're filing this under, we have no earthly idea, and hoping nobody asks too many questions. Dr. Moreau was the last one standing. Everyone else had packed up, moved on to safer projects. Things that wouldn't make them question the fundamental nature of reality itself. But Moreau stayed. I found him in his office at 3 in the morning, surrounded by printouts of that single waveform, pages taped to every wall like some kind of sacred geometry. You know what I think it was? He said without looking up. I think the planet was trying to speak. Just once. One perfect word, in a language we'll never understand. The official reports came back exactly as expected. Insufficient data for analysis. Single point source insufficient for pattern recognition. They used every big word they could find to say what Moreau had said in plain English. The Earth made a sound, and we caught it by accident. But here's what they didn't put in the reports. The temperature readings from that day? All wrong. Every thermometer within 1,000 miles of the Mariana Trench showed a drop of exactly 0.2 degrees. For exactly 29 seconds. Not a fraction more, not a fraction less, like the whole ocean took one deep breath and held it. Moreau published his final papers 6 months later. Not in Nature or Science. Those gates had closed tight. Instead, he printed 50 copies himself, bound them in blue paper, and mailed them to anyone who'd ever asked about the pulse. The title was simple, A Postscript to Silence. I have one of those copies in front of me now. He wrote that the pulse wasn't a message. It was a reflex, a tectonic exhalation, the planet's equivalent of that sharp intake of breath you make when you remember something you'd forgotten for years. The kind of sound that escapes when memory and geology collide. The vinyl came later. One of Moreau's graduate students discovered you could print waveforms onto records, so they took that 29-second pulse and stretched it. Not sped up or slowed down, but stretched, pulled like taffy, until 1 second became 30 seconds, until 29 seconds became 29 minutes of pure geological silence. They pressed exactly one copy, set it to spin at 0.034 revolutions per minute. So slow you can't hear anything. Just watch the groove spiral inward, like water down a drain. One rotation takes exactly 29 minutes and 29 seconds. The math isn't accidental. I visited it once, in the basement of the Scripps Institute. They keep it in a climate-controlled room now, this single record that contains the only heartbeat the planet ever let us hear. The technician who showed me in had this look, like he'd seen something he couldn't explain but couldn't forget either. People ask if we play it, he said. But what would be the point? You can't hear anything. It's too slow, too quiet. It's not meant for human ears. Moreau died last spring. Heart attack, they said. Though I think it was something else. Something that started the day he realized we'd heard the Earth speak and couldn't understand a single word. His last request was simple. Bury the waveform with him. Not the record. Just the original printout, folded small enough to fit in a shirt pocket. So that's where we are now. The pulse remains classified as unresolved, filed away in digital archives next to other mysteries we've learned to live with. The ocean keeps its secrets, and we keep pretending we weren't changed by what we heard. But sometimes, when it's very late and the house is very quiet, I swear I can still feel it. That 29-second shiver running through the floorboards, through my bones, through everything we think we know about the ground beneath our feet. The planet remembering something we've forgotten. The record still spins in that basement, one rotation every 29 minutes and 29 seconds, forever frozen in its only heartbeat. And maybe, getting back, maybe that's enough. Maybe some messages aren't meant to be decoded, just witnessed, just acknowledged, because the Earth spoke once, and we were listening. We didn't understand. How could we? But we heard it. And in the end, maybe that's what the planet was trying to say all along. I'm here. I breathe. I remember. And you're part of it, whether you understand or not. The sound that changed everything ended up changing nothing, except now we know. We know the planet dreams, remembers, exhales. And somewhere in the deep and the dark, it's still speaking, still waiting for someone who might understand the next word. And that's the end of the story. Not with answers, but with the knowledge that answers aren't always the point. Sometimes the question is the gift. Sometimes the mystery is the message. And sometimes the Earth just wanted us to know it could speak.